started tonight. Welcome to the May 16th, 2023 City of Oshkosh Plan Commission meeting. We're glad that you can join us here. I do have a few housekeeping items I'd like to go over before we begin. Please turn off or silence all of your personal communication devices. When there is an agenda item that includes a public hearing, please understand that the applicant will be allowed to speak first. After the applicant finishes, the public will be allowed to speak. When called upon to speak, please approach the podium and state your name and address for the public record. You only have one opportunity per agenda item to speak unless a Plan Commission member requires clarification or wishes to ask you a question. After the public finishes speaking, the applicant will be asked if they have a final statement for the Plan Commission, and then the Commission will take action on the agenda item. Thank you for your understanding. Now on to the agenda. I see we have a quorum, so roll call, please.
Miss Davy,
Here.
Councilmember Esslinger, Mr. Kiefer, Miss Prop,
Here.
Miss Shireman, Mr. Lowenstein, Mr. Nichols,
Here.
Mr. Bowen, Mr. Kulabali,
Here.
Vice Chair Mitchell, Chairman Perry.
Here.
5 present.
Thank you. First item on our agenda is the approval of the April 18th, 2023 minutes, Plan Commission.
Move to accept as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, having seen none, we can have a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Item number 1, residential design standards variance to allow window area reductions and closures on the front facade at 14 East Melvin Avenue. Nick Keller is the owner and applicant. Have there been any site inspections by the Plan Commission? We have 2. I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary for us.
Thank you, Commissioner. So as stated, the applicant is requesting approval of variance from the city's residential design standards to allow for window area reductions and closures on the front facade at 14 East Melvin Avenue. On the screen is the subject site, which contains a residential lot that is approximately 3,060 square feet, and it contains a 2-story single-family home that's approximately 1,300 square feet. The property directly to the east of the subject property is very alike in character, having an enclosed front porch and similar roof lines, while the rest of the surrounding neighborhood varies in character, but similar with a 2-story scale. The applicant was issued a siding permit on June 8th, 2022 to replace siding, and an inspection was completed on October 31st of 22 to approve said siding. On March 21st, 2023, planning staff was made aware that new windows were also installed on the front porch, resulting in a window size reduction and closure on the front facade. At that time, the owner was made aware that a design standard variance was needed in order for the work to not be in violation of the above noted code sections, and the owner then submitted the proper design standard variance application. The applicant stated that they had converted the screen porch into an enclosed porch so it would be weatherproof, be more secure, and reduce the previous 7 window openings down to 2 openings. The applicant feels that this change improves the overall look of the home and could potentially increase the value and desire of the home. Planning staff reviewed this alteration with the assessor's department staff, and they had stated that new siding, windows, and enclosing a porch does in fact increase property values. The new windows and porch enclosures were done without zoning inspections or Plan Commission review or approval. As you can see here, the image on the left is what the home previously looked like, and as it sits today as the image on the right. So there clearly is a reduction here in some closures. So the windows on the first floor went from a total of approximately 85 square feet down to, those are 4x4 windows that were installed, down to 32 square feet. The overall reduction equated to approximately 11.1% of window area reduction. The other thing to note is that, again, approximately the previous total percentage of window and door area was 27.5%, and now as it stands, it's approximately 16.4%. And I'm mentioning that because code requires a minimum of 25% on the front facade for window and door areas. So after evaluating the petitioner's application, examining the property and the surrounding areas, and discussing the property internally, staff is of the opinion that the completed work has not had a major detrimental impact on the architectural integrity of the front facade. However, as stated, the removal of the existing windows does result in a reduction of total window area on the front facade by approximately 11.1%. These additional improvements were considered in staff's recommendation, and staff feel that the overall project does not negatively affect the neighborhood, and with the installation of one more window, will not impact the architectural integrity of the home. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the variance with the following conditions, and that is that one more additional window be installed east of the front door. That additional window to be reviewed and approved by staff prior to installation. All current and future work on the house shall meet the residential design standards, and any work not in compliance with the standards shall be filed as a separate request for Plan Commission review and approval. The applicant owner shall also obtain all required approvals and permits for this and any future work conducted at the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Plan Commission, do you have any technical questions to our staff? No technical questions? All right, as I do with all agenda items, I'm going to open this as a public comment period and request a statement from the applicant. Is Nick Keller here? If you could approach the podium and state your name and address for our records, please. And provide a brief statement.
My name is Nicholas Keller. I'm the owner of NK3 Investments and the owner of said property at 14 East Melvin. At the time we did the work, we did the siding work. I am also a licensed contractor as well. We were not aware of any kind of plan commission or variance or anything like that. The windows that were in there were nothing more than screen windows that pretty much fell apart in my hands as I was taking them out. So at that point, I mean, there was no place to go but up. So we did what we had to do, and I've owned the property for almost 2 years now. And since then, we've been able to increase the value of it considerably, and the looks as well. It was easily the worst looking house on the block. Now it's one of the nicer ones. The previous tenants who just moved out a few months ago, they love the screen porch. They love the new porch even better. And now the new ones that live there now, they can't get enough of the porch. They love having it. They would probably be heartbroken if it went away. So that's pretty much all I have to say.
Ms. Prop would like to ask a question. Go ahead.
Yeah. What kind of hardship would it be, if any, to install another window on the east?
After speaking with Brandon on it and doing a lot of measuring back and forth, we came to the conclusion that it wouldn't be too hard to install another window there, although it might have to be a little bit smaller, and it would definitely have to be a custom size window. It's not something that I go to the store and pull off the shelf and throw in. So it would take some time to get, probably a good bit of money to get. I'd say roughly $500 maybe to get the window itself, and then a day's worth of labor to install it and fix the siding around it.
How does it? How would it affect the function of the porch?
Um,
Is that whole area still porch?
Yes, it's still porch. It's not in any way, shape, or form open to the house. It still has its existing front door inside, and it's nothing more than 2x4s and plywood on the inside. We do plan on replacing the front steps We applied for the Healthy Neighborhood Grant to help with the cost in that. And we do plan to, insulate it and finish it off in the future, but, time and money and other projects.
Well, it looks much, much better. Thank you. So
Yes.
that's my only question.
Okay.
Did anybody else, while the applicant is up there, have a question for them? Thank you. Thank you for your statement. At this time, I will request additional public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to comment on this particular agenda item? Okay, having seen none, I'm going to close the public comment period. Thank you. Commission, the action is upon you.
If I may just make one more comment.
Certainly.
So again, the existing approximation was 27.5% of total windows and doors, and what's currently there puts it at 16.4. With the addition of one more window, the rough calculations bring that percentage up to almost 20%. So that was staff's logic on adding that condition, was that it just gets a little bit closer to the 25, which is required.
Yeah,
Would
still
you say 20%?
be about 20. Would still need the variance because it's below the 25%, but it's a little bit closer, so it's less of a variance.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations stated in the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion on this motion? Ms. Prop?
Yeah, I think it looks so much better. And I don't know if it's necessary to install that third window.
I mean, there are.
Hold on, please. Hold on.
Can't talk. So that's an opinion I want to
Okay.
state.
Any other discussion? Mr. Mamadou Koulibaly?
Yeah, I feel it's definitely a great improvement of the structure in the neighborhood, but I think there is a compliance that is needed, and I'm also concerned about setting precedents. May other neighbors be willing to do the same thing, then we might have to let it go. So that's the only thing. So if there's a rule, everybody has to follow so that we don't fall into a chaos in the neighborhood. That's my only thing. Otherwise, it looks good to me, but I think we have to learn to comply with regulations so that we all do. We don't make so easily exceptions.
Ms. Davy?
I agree that it does definitely look much nicer. I assume there was no building permit pulled for any of this?
The permit was just for the siding work, but the new windows, there was no review or permit for those.
Okay, I guess I find it a little disturbing that somebody in the construction business doesn't realize that that would be necessary. But I don't disagree with Kathy. I don't know that adding the other window, unless it's something beneficial for the fire department or something, I see no other reason to, I would not oppose it staying like it is.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this motion? I do have a statement that I'd like to make as well. About 6 times a year, we get these kind of requests that come to us for work that's already been done. And 6 times a year, we ask the same question: what if we say no? Because we have to draw a line in the sand somewhere, because this type of work can't happen without going through the proper channels and getting the proper permits. In this particular case, I am also concerned because somebody in the construction industry did this without pulling those permits, and we've seen that before. I'm also with Mr. Koulibaly in establishing a precedent, and that concerns me greatly because we do go through this 6 or more times a year. I don't think that adding an additional window is a burden on this particular situation, and I think that the planning division is working very hard to try and make a wrong a right, but also trying to get it close so that we don't set those precedent in other situations where somebody says, well, I can do 16% front facade from now on, and get there. So I am in support of all the conditions that are placed upon this, and hope that these situations that come to us go away, are further and further away from us as people know to go through the proper channels to get the proper review and permits. So I am supportive of all of the conditions that Planning Department is suggesting to us. Any other, Ms. Prop?
You make good arguments and so does Mama do, so I accept those arguments.
Okay. Any other discussion on this motion?
Can I ask a question of the planning?
Certainly.
Had he requested a variance at the beginning, would you have suggested adding that window that 20% would have been acceptable?
Yeah, if,
No, I mean.
well, if this had come to us on a request prior to work being done, I think we would have had a similar evaluation process. We would have looked at the surrounding area. What is the context of theirs in? Is there a mixture of houses that are above and below the 25%? We would have evaluated this, dropping it below, and is it a reasonable request based on the context of the area? I think ultimately, for my opinion, we probably would have made the same request. The work being done has been a benefit to the house. I don't think anyone can argue with that. And we want to carefully balance those things. The owner made an improvement in the house, and we want to make sure we recognize that. And adding that additional window, I think, although it may not meet code, it still improves the property and maintains the intent of the code. The intent of the code is to make sure we have a minimal amount of glazing doors, windows, to give some visual aesthetic standards to our community. And in this case, looking at the pitch of the roof, the style of the home, the surrounding area, I think we probably would have recommended that 20% would have been approved. It still would have had to come to you for approval, but I think our recommendation would have been the same then as it is now.
But we likely would have ended up in the same place with 3 windows had it all been, so I think Mr. Perry's point is a good one.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this motion? Okay, having seen none, we're going to have a roll call vote.
Miss Davy?
Aye.
Miss Prop?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda is a street dedication of Seaward Trail and Oak Street. City of Oshkosh, the owner, and the City of Oshkosh and Oshkosh Area School District is the applicant. Has there been any site inspections for this agenda item? Ms. Prop, Ms. Davy? All right, thank you. I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a right-of-way dedication request for Seaward Trail and a little extension of Oak Street. The subject site is located just south of the current Webster Stanley School, soon to be Menominee Elementary School. During initial reviews for the new Menominee School, a question came up if Seaward Trail was ever officially dedicated to the public or not. We looked through city records and could not find anything officially dedicating it. So a certified survey map was being prepared for the school site, and we thought it would be prudent to include these right-of-way dedications. The proposed dedication is included on a certified survey map, which will be used to combine a couple of school properties. The district acquired this lot here and this lot, so the CSM will combine all 3 into 1, as well as dedicate Seaward Trail and a little segment of Oak Street. The dedication will be a 46-foot right-of-way, approximately 260 feet long between Hazel and Oak Streets. And the little extension of Oak Street is approximately 12 foot by 66 feet wide. And there's the draft CSM showing the dedication and the lot combination for the school property. And staff is recommending approval of the right-of-way dedication as presented.
Wonderful, thank you. Our Plan Commissioner, any technical questions to the staff? Any technical questions? All right, having seen none, I will open this to public comment. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Any member of the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period. Commission, the action is on your plate.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, having seen none, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Davy,
Aye.
Ms. Prop,
Aye.
Mr. Nichols,
Aye.
Mr. Colabali,
Aye.
Chairman Perry.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 3 is a public hearing. It's the approval of design standards alteration and renovation review for 135 High. The owner and the applicant is Paul Winter. Has there been any site inspections of this particular property? Ms. Davy? Okay. All right, I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
All right, I'll fill in for Brandon until he gets back here. So this is a commercial design standards request for design alteration review within the CMU zoning. We've seen a number of these CMU zoning design standards requests over the years. Just a reminder for Plan Commission, in the downtown area, commercial have specific set of design standards that are a little bit different than what we have for residential, like we did in item number 1 today. So this is specifically reviewing against those commercial design standards. They're broken down into 3 categories: project review, design alteration review, and the third one that's escaped me at the time. So this is a design alteration review. The applicant is requesting to close a window up. So it was previously, there we go, had a boarded up window. In the CMU district, you are not allowed to board up windows under the current code. So when a situation like this arises where it is no longer covered, they now have to adhere to code. The applicant has come in and is requesting the variance to be able to close that window back up. It is on a side of the property. As you can see, it's almost like a little alleyway between them. Staff does have concern with the proposed material of closing the window. We understand that the desire and request to close it. It is a side facade. But in staff's opinion, when closing up a structure of this type, it should be closed up with appropriate materials based on the context of the building. So it should be, for example, bricked back in or closed back in if they don't want to put glazing back in. Simply putting a piece of steel or metal over that really goes against the design standards and the nature of what we're trying to promote within our downtown area and these type of buildings. If it needs to be closed in, and in our opinion is it should be closed in appropriately, which would again be, a permanent closure of it with an appropriate material. So with that, staff is recommending denial of the request because we do not feel it's the appropriate method for closing it in, just using, steel or metal to close it in.
Want me to read this section?
Now Brandon can.
Okay. I will, I'm just gonna read the section here that's pertinent to what we're talking about. So section 30-171-6 of the zoning code states that exterior materials and surface features that are identical to the original exterior materials or surface features shall be used, and if replacement identical materials and features are not possible, other features and materials may be used, provided they are compatible with the design and style of the building as determined by Plan Commission. The proposed material options for the window closer do not meet this standard, as no other portion of the original building is steel or a siding material. This code section also states that the original window and door openings shall not be blocked, and where currently blocked shall be restored when possible. Lastly, the code section states that if the window and door preservation is not possible, window and door features shall be replaced with identical features and materials. And again, if that's not possible, other materials may be used provided they are compatible with the design style of the building as determined by Plan Commission. The applicant did state that these were all removed roughly 20 years ago, and that some of them are bricked up and some of them are boarded up. There's a combination of both.
Thank you for your report. Plan Commissioner, are there any technical questions for staff? Ms. Davy?
So we're only discussing this one window opening, correct?
At this time, yes.
Until the other wood gets broken or something.
Correct.
Did you mention, this was broken into, and that's why it's down, okay. So the opportunity has now arose.
For one.
For one window. Unfortunately, as these boarding up preceded the code, we cannot require them to do anything with the other windows that are still essentially legal non-conforming at this time. So we can only address the one that currently the code would apply to.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Nichols?
And reboarding it with the same material that was in it is also not an option.
So correct, I mean, just putting a board over it would not be compliant with the design standards within the code.
Nor did it seem to work very well.
Ms. Prop?
I really wanted to get to see it, but it just didn't happen. So now that we have that lower photo on the right, there's the boarded up window, and then what fills the other windows that
They
we?
are, as Brandon had
So-
mentioned there's a mixture.
Yeah, some are
Mixture.
like this one maybe is brick, this one's wood, this one may be brick, this one may be wood. You know, there's a combination. These are all wood here
In the front.
in
And
the
which
front.
one are we talking about?
Way back here.
Oh, way back there. Okay.
On the back of the building, I think there's some concrete, something or other too.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other technical questions for the staff? Okay, seeing none, we will have a public hearing on this. And so I would invite the applicant to come and speak. Is the applicant here? Please state your name and address for our records, please.
Paul Winter, 205 North 6th Avenue, Winneconne, Wisconsin.
Is there anything that you wanted to mention about this?
Well, this property, the window was taken off, and I didn't take it off. Someone broke in the building. And basically, I'm requesting just to fill it in, box it in as a temporary measure until I can sell the building and the new owners have an option to either perhaps brick it in permanently or perhaps put a window in depending on their needs or wants. And they could also do that for the other windows that are there. They could knock them out, put windows in, or remain as is. So it's just a temporary thing, it's not a permanent thing, and to brick it in now would be more permanent than just boxing it in for the next owner to decide what they want to do. It does not make any sense to just brick in or put a window in, just one window in the back of the alley that nobody can see and only invites more vandalism and break-ins. So I don't see what harm it does to anybody. It's a temporary thing. It would be more symmetrical if it was all bricked in the future, if that's what someone wanted to do. But to put in one window out of 7 makes no sense at all. And next door, the lower windows are all covered up directly to the west with sheet metal siding. Also, I feel this should be a grandfathered in situation where I should be allowed to board it back up if someone rips it off, just because the wind blows it off, but doesn't give the city the right to just enforce their new standards and codes. So I'm just requesting common sense. That's all.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? Okay, Mr. Kulbali, do you have a question of the applicant?
Yes, I just want to know if he has a timeline on when the house is going on the market.
So if you could approach the podium again.
Well, as you know, this is a distressed property. It has environmental issues. That's the main reason I cannot sell the place. I approached the city to see if they were interested in purchasing it from me, and they said, well, it's only assessed at this much, and that's all we can give you. And I said, well, I can't sell it for that, so, because it has great potential. The building was built in 1884. It's a great brick building. It could be a very nice building for the right individual. I had plans for it back when I bought it 3 years ago, and due to unforeseen circumstances, it didn't come to fruition, or however you say that. So right now, it's difficult to sell until the environmental is taken care of, and I invested about $30,000 towards that environmental cleanup and then ran out of money. And that's where we sit today. unless someone would be willing to purchase it or the city would increase their offer if they are interested at all.
Mr. Nichols, you have a follow-up question?
Has it been vacant for all 20 years?
Yes.
And is it are you actively marketing the property, or is it,
No one's gonna touch it.
but are you actively marketing the property for sale?
No. It has Perk, it's a dry cleaning agent, and with King Laundry across the street, all their contamination went under my building and next door to where the Lizard Lounge is. And they remediated all of theirs, and they got signed off by the DNR, but I never did because I don't have the money to continue that right now.
All right, any other questions for the applicant from the board? All right, and no other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, I'm closing the public hearing then. The applicant has made a closing statement, so commission, the action is upon you.
Move to adopt the finding and recommendation as stated in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Ms. Davy?
He said he bought it over 20 years ago, and you said the rules went into effect about that, just shortly after.
2017 is when the current code
Okay,
ended.
so only like 6 years ago. Can it be sold again and still be grandfathered? Or if somebody were to purchase it, do they have to fix this all up anyway?
Would be grandfathered in its current condition. So any of the windows that are presently boarded up would continue to be grandfathered until such time that the boarding came down and were no longer there, then they would have to be upgraded to meet code.
What happens if nothing happens with it?
In terms of,
Is there a daily fine or something? Or
so
would
he
that-
is right now in violation of the code, was issued a violation. If there is no resolution, we would go down the normal enforcement path.
Thank you.
Mr. Nichols?
As a follow-up, if someone were to purchase the property, and they didn't want to leave it a vacant building, I'm assuming they would have to bring it up to code anyway to have it occupied, correct?
More than likely, the building would need improvements.
Which would include this window and the rest?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Ms. Prop?
Just this is a rock and a hard place, kind of a decision. Because what good is it gonna do to deny this and continue to fine this person who claims he hasn't got enough money to do something with it? Break it up, so.
Thank you. I'll make a comment as well. The thing that I'm most concerned about is the word temporary. To paraphrase a comment from years ago, it depends on what the definition of is. It depends on what the definition of temporary is. And in one person's mind, it can be much longer than what I think the word is. And so that concerns me as such. And so I'm going to support the planning staff's recommendation on this particular one. So a vote aye is supporting the Plan Commission's recommendation. Any other discussion on the motion?
One comment.
One
because
comment.
We always get into this because we don't do it often. Wind denial. The motion is always in the affirmative, so the motion is to approve the request as written. That way, a yes means yes, you're approving him to board it in with metal. A no would essentially, in this case, mean you agree with staff, and no, the variance is denied. So no means denial.
No means
Yes
denial.
means allowing him to close it in with his proposed materials.
Okay.
Just one, because we get a little tricky there.
All right, so we have that
A
clarification.
yes means approval of his variance request. A no means denial of his variance request.
Okay, so we have that clear?
No, 'cause I vote first. Okay, so if I want it to have to be filled in, I vote,
No.
thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on this motion? Okay, we're going to have a roll call vote.
Miss Davy?
No.
Ms. Prop,
No.
Mr. Nichols.
No.
Mr. Kulabali,
No.
Chairman Perry.
No.
Variance denied.
Variance denied,
5-0.
5-0, okay.
We have to move on to the next agenda item.
Brick it in or not brick it in?
We have to move on to our next agenda item. We'll discuss that with the Plan Commission staff. Item number 4 on the agenda is a public hearing. It's a conditional use permit request for a new elementary school at 915 Hazel Street. The Oshkosh Area School District is the owner. Nate Constantine, Bray Architects is the applicant. Have there been any site inspections? Ms. Prop, Ms. Davy, myself as well. Okay, I'm going to accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you. So the subject site is Webster Stanley Middle School. It has frontage on Hazel Street, Grove Street, Melvin, and Seaward Trail. It is surrounded primarily by residential land uses along with a nominee park to the east. Here's a view of the current subject site. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing Webster Stanley Middle School and construct a new elementary school. It'll have an anticipated enrollment of 600 students along with approximately 75 staff members. It is considered an indoor institutional land use, which requires a conditional use permit in the institutional district. Staff does not have concerns with the proposed use as it is consistent with the 2040 comprehensive land use recommendation of community facility for the site. Also, the new school will have approximately the same number of users as the existing site and should not generate a significantly larger impact on the surrounding area. So the site will have 5 accesses, 2 off of Grove Streets, 1 off of Melvin, which is only for the dumpster enclosure and loading area, and then 2 off of Hazel Street. It'll have 2 parking areas, 1 off of Hazel Street and 1 off of Grove Street for a total of 97 parking stalls. And again, the refuse enclosure on the north side of the building, and that'll be constructed of face brick to match the principal building. The applicant is proposing a monument sign. It'll be 7 feet tall and 40 square feet in area, including an 11 square foot electronic message center sign in the center of it, and that is shown on Hazel Street. Here is the landscaping plan. It meets all requirements for building foundation landscaping in paved areas. Also meets street frontage landscaping requirements with the exception of not meeting the 50% medium tree requirement along all frontages. However, the applicant is increasing the planting size for medium and tall trees along the street frontages and also keeping some existing trees along those frontages. And staff has the ability to administratively approve the reduction in those points. One of the reasons we can do that is based on them increasing the planting sizes, so staff is supportive of that plan. They are also meeting buffer yard requirements along the south property lines, which are abutting residential land uses and zoning. They are showing 6-foot solid wood fencing along these property lines, and then arborvitaes within those 25-foot setback areas along the streets to meet the buffer yard requirement. Here are the proposed building elevations. Building elevations will be constructed of a combination of stone, brick, glass, and metal panels. Institutional land uses do not have specific code requirements for exterior materials. Staff compared their exterior materials to the commercial design standards, and they are exceeding the Class 1 material requirements for what would be required for commercial uses. So staff is supportive of the proposed building elevations. With that, staff recommends approval of the CUP with the findings in your staff report and the condition that the final landscaping plan be approved by community development.
Just
All right.
a couple of additional quick comments. Just reminder to Plan Commission, this is a conditional use permit, so it does have to be a fully code compliant project, unlike the last school, which went through the zone change in the PD route. This is a CUP for the base land use. All of the code requirements are met. Landscaping is a little bit different in this one because we do have some flexibility built within the code to help with landscaping. As Brian mentioned, they are increasing their planting sizes, which is one of the code things that essentially you go with more mature landscaping, you don't need as much of it. So that they have chosen in this case to do that, go with significantly larger than the minimum planting sizes. So we do have the discretion to approve that just at the staff level, but the entire site plan does meet code, which is why it is only a conditional use permit and needs to be evaluated on the fact that it's just a conditional use permit.
Thank you for your reports. Plan Commissioner, is there any technical questions? Ms. Davy?
Can you go back to where the 3 buildings are shown? Yeah,
Well, the elevations.
Elevations?
yeah, the elevations. I couldn't remember the word. On the top one and on the bottom one, I know it's the same thing, but what's sticking up to the, like a 3rd story? Do you see what I'm, yeah.
This section, I'm going to defer to the applicant because I can't keep track of it either.
Okay. And I can wait.
Ms. Prop?
I'm unclear about whether that, go back to the, not that one, that one. Where the playground is?
This?
But it looks weird.
Yeah, this is the playground.
Just the
Sorry,
white
all of
area,
this.
the whole thing.
Yep, all of this is playground space.
Okay, and the grade area is probably grass,
This is the
The
building.
building.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other technical questions for the staff from the Plan Commission? Mr. Nichols?
Are there any concerns with the electronic sign in the residential, or that close to a residential area, or is that within the zoning requirements?
Yep, it meets the code requirements for EMCs. We do have some relatively strict requirements for EMCs in terms of size and proximity to residential. It does meet the spacing requirements necessary from single-family residential.
Yeah, code requires it to be at least 100 feet from a residentially zoned property, and the nearest one is up here, which is, it's well over 100 feet from that residentially zoned property.
Great, thanks.
Any other technical questions? All right, seeing none, since this is a public hearing, I will open the public hearing and request a statement from the applicant. Is the applicant here today? Approach the podium and state your name and address for our records, please.
Good evening. I am Jim Fox, representing the Oshkosh Area Schools, 1404 South Main Street, Oshkosh. A couple points of clarification as you look at the main building. You're correct. The center part of the reverse C is hardscape playground, so we have poured in place for handicap accessible, plus some asphalt basketball playgrounds. To the southeast corner of that lot is a grassy area. That is actually a natural turf play area for some of the smaller children, kickball. That'll all be part of the playground. That'll be their grassy space though. So just clarification if you're wondering where that playground would be. Basketball versus kickball. The piece that you saw on the other screen that appears to be something sitting on top of the building is a mechanical penthouse. So we'll have our mechanical ventilation pieces that support the ventilation for the 2-story academic area within it.
And the solar panels go on top of that?
There are no solar panels, no. So again, here's a representative of the school. I'm here to answer any questions you may have relative to site design, site use, or any concerns you have or questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak on this agenda item? Any other members of the public that wish to speak on this agenda item? Would you like to speak? Approach this podium and state your name and address for our records, please.
My name is Joyce Anderson. I live at 835 Hazel. My question is regarding the fencing that you previously mentioned. Would you repeat what you said about the fencing?
Yes, the fencing along here, excuse me, is 6 foot tall wood fencing, and that's along these residential properties down here.
It's going to be along the residential properties?
Correct.
Not part of the school.
It's on the school's property, but abutting the residential properties. But it's within the school's site.
Okay. Is it going to be wood, or what are you using for materials?
The plan shows 6-foot tall wood, yes.
Wood, okay. And the sign is going to be facing Hazel Street?
Based on the orientation here, it's facing north and south.
Well, is it going to be like a tombstone, that kind of sign, or is it going to be flush against the school so that it actually faces the park?
It's a monument-style sign that you'd view driving north and south on Hazel Street.
Okay, but how will that affect any of the housing on either side? Will we be able to see it or not?
There is landscaping in the area. I think about a landscape plan. So there are trees both along the south and to the north of it. So its view should largely be blocked from the residential area. May you be able to see it? You know, until that landscaping is put in, I can't say one or another. But given its distance in the landscape in the area, it should largely not be visible.
Do you feel that the fence would do anything to secure the school? I mean, right now, there are lights attached to the school, and I'm able to see when a light is out for security for the school. So what kind of lighting or security will you have? Not this fence, because you can't see through the fence.
From a security standpoint, I'll defer to the applicant. The fence is a code requirement because of the buffer yard residential standards, not a security measure.
Okay, well, my question was, now there is no fence. There's no fence around the school. There are security lights at each door. And if you have the fence there now, anyone else in the public can't see beyond the fence.
The fence is adjacent to the residential, just to the southwest. The school will still have to have its own lighting and their own security standards. There's a photometric plan that was reviewed and code compliant as well. That fence is just along the residence to meet our buffer yard requirements.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other members of the public that wish to speak at this time? Last call. Any members from the public wish to speak at this time? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period, the public hearing, and ask for a closing statement from the applicant. If the applicant would like to return and answer a couple of those questions, that would be wonderful.
What I heard is lighting concerns and security concerns, so we have our own camera system, which will be, we have exterior cameras, interior cameras, which will cover the entire site. We also have a lighting plan approved through the city. There will be outside lights, parking lot lights, so the site itself will be secure and well lit. Furthermore, it's a woven fence to the north and to the west, so police cruising by, they will be able to patrol the parking lot. They will be able to view into the property itself if they want to put eyes on the property to monitor anything, any type of activity. Other questions?
All right. We do have a question from Ms. Davy.
I think it said that there's 96 parking stalls now, 97, something like that. What did the former school have? What's currently there?
I don't have the exact numbers, probably perhaps 50, 45.
So it should help the on-street parking in the neighborhood.
Significantly. The numbers will support all the staff working within that facility.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Commission, the action is upon you.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this motion? Any discussion on this motion? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Miss Davy?
Aye.
Miss Prop?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Chairman Perry.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
Wonderful, thank you. Item number 5A is a public hearing. It's a zone change from Heavy Industrial District, HI, to Heavy Industrial District with a Plan Development Overlay, HIPD, for property located at 3300 Metallist Drive. Marmax Holdings LLC is the owner, and Richard Fisher of Fisher and Associates is the applicant. Have there been any site inspections? Ms. Davy, Ms. Prop. I'll accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary. Wait, we have a comment.
If I could, Mr. Chairman. Plan Commission, would you rather see a single presentation on the entirety of the project and then just do separate votes on the zone change and the PD?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so this is a two parts report, I guess. The first part is a zone change for current industrial property located at 3300 Metallist Drive. Up on the screen, I have the property highlighted. The subject site is currently zoned HI Heavy Industrial and is approximately 17.05 acres in size. The site is developed with a larger industrial building on the west side and a smaller office building just south of West 33rd Avenue right here, and then 3 main off-street parking areas and other accessory structures. The applicant's proposing a zone change to establish, or not a zone change, but to add a plan development overlay to this site to provide some flexibility to accommodate some site constraints for a future use expansion, which will be part of the second part of this presentation. The applicant has submitted applications for GDP and SIP plans for personal storage facilities, which will be located at the southeast corner of the property. Staff is supportive of the proposed zone change to include the PD overlay, as it will serve to accommodate the future development needs. The comprehensive plan recommends heavy industrial for the area, and so that's consistent with the comp plan, as well as the surrounding areas. So staff is supportive of the addition of the plan development overlay as requested.
And just one brief additional comment. Originally, this request did come to staff as a conditional use permit because the base product they want to do is viable through a conditional use permit in this district. However, as working through the plan set with the developer, there's a couple of things that code would have required through a conditional use permit that just didn't make sense. For example, landscaping directly in front of the storage units instead of landscaping the exterior of the site where they're actually going to be visible from. So when we're looking at that, working with the applicant, we're like, let's do this as a plan development. We agree moving that stuff to the exterior of the site is where it's going to be beneficial. So we discussed with them and moved to more of the plan development route because just doing it as code compliant didn't necessarily make sense in this case.
Okay, part 2. This is the GDP SIP request at the same subject location at 3300 Metallist. The site currently has a approximately 140,000 square foot manufacturing building and a 19,500 square foot office building. The site's located within aviation industrial park, and all surrounding uses are industrial in nature. And a little bit further to the west, we have Whitman Field Airport. The petitioner is proposing to add an additional use to this site in the form of 4 indoor climate-controlled, secured self-storage buildings, which will have a combined size of 92,000 square feet, which are these 4 buildings over here. The north end of Building A, which is this portion of this building, also contains a 30-foot by 40-foot, 1,200 square foot office for on-site staff. The facility will be monitored both on-site and remotely via a camera system, and the facility will be staffed full-time on a seasonal basis with part-time staff in the winter months. And the typical hours of operation will be from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturdays. The building outside the security gate. Yeah, a portion of, they're proposing to install a security gate right here to prevent, or where's that gate? Prevent access onto the storage area buildings. The main customers they're trying to attract is primarily for RV and camper storage, which will be behind a 6-foot tall security fence. And there are also 24 units that will be accessible on the north side of Building C that can be accessed without entering the fenced area. And this is just a breakdown on the minimum setback requirements and parking. They meet all base setback requirements as far as the front and street side and rear setbacks. The petitioner did request a base standard modification for a reduction in parking stalls. With the new site plan, the number of parking stalls will be reduced from 67 to 58 stalls. However, there are 230 additional stalls located elsewhere on the site, over here and here. And the zoning ordinance only requires that the parking provided shall be on site, so they have an additional 230 stalls, which would cover up to 230 employees at this plant's maximum shift. However, the building is currently vacant and staff is comfortable that the additional parking more than adequately makes up for the loss of parking south of the office building. And in addition to that, there is a covered walkway which connects the parking area at the northeast or northwest corner of the property to the general area where the office building is and the personal storage. The site plan shows there's a landscape plan. The site plan shows 30 reconfigured stalls as a single row adjacent to the adjacent to an 18-foot wide by 270-foot long curbed green space. The size of the green space eliminates the need for landscape planter islands at each end. However, the code will require one intermediate island for every 20 stalls, so during site plan review, an additional island will be required somewhere in between both ends of the greenscaped area. As far as signage, the applicant's submittal did not include any additional signage. Currently, the site has one sign which serves the main industrial building located over here. However, the code does allow one ground sign for each right-of-way frontage, so a second ground sign can be placed on West 33rd Avenue if desired. Any new signage shall meet the base code standards allowed in the HI district. A lighting plan has not been provided with a submittal. Any lighting must be provided along all drive aisles and parking areas with a minimum 0.4 foot candle illumination within these paved areas over here and here, and a maximum of 0.5 foot candles at the property lines. And again, this will be addressed during site plan review. Stormwater management plans have been submitted and are currently under review by the Department of Public Works, and final approvals will be addressed during site plan review. Landscaping plan has been submitted as proposed, based on the paved area, foundation, and yard landscaping requirements. 2,174.6 points are required, and as proposed, they're proposing 2,543.8 points, which is 17% over what is required. As Mark or Mr. Lyons mentioned, the applicant is asking for a base standard modification to omit foundation landscaping along the long ends of the proposed buildings, mainly due to the number of overhead doors, which makes it impractical or impossible to install planting in these areas. So as to offset that base standard request, they're beefing up the landscaping on the ends of the proposed storage buildings, and as well this 18-foot wide green space island is very heavily landscaped to add as some screening from West 33rd Avenue to the north. This is just a photo of the proposed fencing that will be used on the site that will be located around the majority of the buildings besides the north half of Building C. And as far as materials, the zoning ordinance requires industrial buildings to be clad in class 1, 2, or 3 materials, and also requires that any facades facing a public street shall be composed of at least 15% of class 1 materials. The elevations show this would be building A/B, which is over here. They are proposing a mix of metal or decorative metal panels, similar to the style. Color is yet to be determined, as well as a brick material, Nichia brick siding for more or less a knee wall. Over here is the elevation that will be facing West 33rd Avenue, and it includes additional window space for the proposed office. So the building A facing the street is proposed to have 22.0% class 1 windows. As far as the other buildings, this building B with more or less minimal class 1 materials, with the north side of building C having 11.7%. Buildings D and E both proposing 0% of class 1 materials facing the street. Again, they're asking for a base standard modification for the reduction in the class 1 materials. Staff is supportive of that request based on the only building that has clear visibility from the public street is Building A, which is providing, I believe it was 17% or 22% class 1 materials. And the other buildings are either being screened by themselves or being screened by the existing office building. And also to help offset that request, they're providing 17% more landscaping than what's required by code. Getting back to the landscape plan. This is the landscaping plan that was proposed. Again, they're providing 17% more than what's required and beefing it up closer to the street with less in areas where that is not viewed from the public, or lands to the south and to the east, which is more or less not developable. So landscaping in these areas would not have any visual impact on the site. However, it was recently brought to our attention there may be some conflicts with the plantings along Building C here. There's a proposed 36-inch storm sewer that will be running through the site. And in addition, there's a proposed berm that will be placed over here. And there's concerns that the combination of the storm sewer, which are generally shallow, and the grade of the berm will make plantings, or difficult for plantings to be established in any groundscapes, such as mulch or stone will be washed away by heavy rain. So staff, the code does allow staff to make changes from what's required from the code based on site constraints or uniqueness to the site. So staff will work with the applicant to come up with a landscape plan that has at least a minimum of points that they proposed at the 2543. So staff is recommending approval of the plan development with the few base standard modifications I mentioned, and the findings listed in the staff report.
All right, thank you for your report. Now, Plan Commission, I wanted to remind you this is on 5A that we're discussing right now, which is the public hearing and the zone change. Are there any technical questions from the Plan Commission to the staff? Okay, I see none. So I am going to open the public hearing and ask if the applicant would like to make a statement. Is the applicant here?
Yes, my name is Brian Fisher, Fisher and Consult. My address is W147 and 10764 Heritage Parkway, Germantown, Wisconsin, representing the owner and the site. I'll probably have more comments on B, but I'm here if you have any questions on A.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak on this zone change on item 5A? Any other members of the public wish to speak on item 5A? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And we don't need an additional statement from the applicant on this item, so commission, action is on your plate.
Move to adopt the finding and recommendation as stated in the staff report.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on 5A? Okay, I see none, so let's have a roll call vote.
Miss Davy?
Aye.
Miss Prop?
Aye?
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
All right, item 5B is the general development plan and specific implementation plan review for addition of personal storage facility use at 3300 Medalist Drive. Marmax Holdings LLC is the owner, Richard Fisher, Fisher and Associates is the applicant. Site inspections, that would be Miss Davy and Miss Prop. Okay, I am accepting the staff report as stated in last item as part of our record. Are there any technical questions from the Plan Commission? Ms. Prop?
Yeah. We're voting on 4 buildings for RV storage. So the RVs will be stored within the buildings.
Correct. There will be no outdoor storage here.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kuwali?
What's that structure on the east of the middle storage? Longitudinal north-south structure.
Right? Fire exits.
Yeah, it's an optional fire lane for emergency vehicles if needed.
Right.
That's still being considered by the fire department.
Okay. Right.
Any other technical questions?
How high is that? It is between the building and the landscaping, right?
Oh,
Plan. How wide is the fire lane?
Yeah.
Oh.
Uh,
Or how tall are
Facility.
the buildings, or how wide? Do you remember, it was only
probably 24 feet.
it's only, at most, it's 24 feet. Like I said, as Jeff had mentioned, there are a little bit of conflicts between the landscaping and the stormwater drainage plan that need to be resolved along that east side to make sure we can accommodate both. Code gives some flexibility for staff to kind of work between Public Works and the applicant. As long as we meet our points, we can kind of move that around. So prior to if this is sent forward and approved by council prior to any final construction starter, we'll have to kind of work that out with them.
Any other technical questions? Okay, I allow public comments. I'm going to open a public comment period. The applicant has made a statement. Would you like to make an additional statement?
If I could approach the plan
Certainly.
really quick.
Just ask you to talk very loudly so the mics pick you up.
No berm here.
The one plan shows a berm.
I'm not sure why. The
Okay.
berm you talked about was going to be between these trees, and it was going to be a grass berm only.
Well, like I said, we can kind of work that out, make sure. There was a little bit of conflict between plan sets.
That's all I have.
All right. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak on this agenda item? Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, I'm closing the public comment period. Do you need to make a closing statement as the applicant?
I'll just mention that we're really appreciative for the opportunity to develop this facility in this location, to have an individual garages for RV and boats that's heated is very, very unique in the area, and this is a very active area for water sports and for campers and RVs, for people going up north. This will be a very popular location, and it's also a great opportunity if there's ever an ordinance in Oshkosh for people not to park RVs in their driveway. Now you got a place to put them. So we thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Commission, action is on your plate.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on the motion? All right, I'll start at storage. However, it's in a very good place for storage, and so I find nothing wrong with this. And I am an RV owner, and it is true that there is very difficult to find an indoor storage facility for your RV, and some neighborhoods in our city do have covenants that do not allow parking in your driveway. So I think that this is probably a very good project. Any other discussion? All right, let's have a roll call vote.
Ms. Davy?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
All right, item 6A. And this is also a two-parter, so we're going to do both reports at once.
If Plan Commission wishes.
And commission wishes. Made that decision. All right, it's a public hearing. Item 6A is a public hearing. Zone change from heavy industrial district HI to heavy industrial district with a planned development overlay and HIPD for properties located at 3400 to 3454 Jackson Street. SDJ Properties LLC is the owner and applicant. Have there been any site inspections? Ms. Prop. All right, I'm going to accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you. So the subject site consists of 3 parcels. The 2 northern parcels are currently being used commercially by solar companies, and the southern parcel was previously a residential parcel that was annexed into the city from the town of Oshkosh recently. They're currently zoned heavy industrial, and the applicant is in the process of having a CSM go through to combine those 3 lots into 1 lot. The applicant is requesting a rezone to establish a planned development overlay to provide some flexibility to accommodate some site constraints for future expansion and redevelopment of these properties. Staff is supportive of the proposed rezone, as it will serve to, accommodate future development of the sites, as it is also has unique boundaries. Here's a view of the subject site as it currently exists. So again, 2 parcels, or 2 commercial parcels and 1 previously residential parcel to the south. So staff recommends approval of the rezone with the findings in your staff report. So on to item B, which is the GDP and SIP. So here's the site plan that was submitted to staff. Plans show addition of a gravel outdoor storage area for Soper Company's equipment in the southern part of the site. Also, some additional gravel to the eastern rear part of the site will also be utilized for storage of equipment. Plans show a combination of vinyl and interwoven slatted 8-foot tall fencing to screen those areas per code. Plans show 3 accesses off of Jackson Street. The Department of Community Development has reviewed these plans and are recommending that 1 be removed, so there's only 2 accesses from Jackson Street. The applicant is requesting a BSM for the southern storage area to be within the front yard, so closer to the street than the principal building. Code requires the screen storage areas to be at least as far back as the principal structure to be out of the front yard, so that will require a BSM. Staff is supportive of their BSM request, as they have provided vinyl chain link fencing along the frontage and along the south property line, which abuts residential. So staff is supportive based on them enhancing the fencing material. Also, they are providing additional landscaping beyond the code requirement and exceeding the buffer yard requirement along the south property line, and also additional street frontage landscaping to break up that front yard setback reduction. As these sites are being combined into 1 property, they will be allowed a maximum of 1 ground sign, which is, they currently have 2 existing, so they will need to remove 1, which they plan to do. As far as the landscaping, they are meeting the street frontage requirement. They're significantly exceeding the yard landscaping requirement. As I mentioned, that is intended to offset that base standard modification. Also, they are meeting that buffer yard requirement with a combination of the fencing and evergreen trees along the south property line. And with that, staff recommends approval of the GDP and SIP with the findings and conditions in your staff report.
All right, thank you for your report.
May I?
Yes, one additional comment.
One, jeez. Just to, a couple of things quick. Kind of the culmination of a project we've been working on for quite a while with the applicant, Plan Commission. I know you recall when we did the annexation several months back, trying to take a largely non-conforming site in the two northern properties. It has a history of various outdoor storage uses, and really try to improve the site. You know, right now, if you go by there today, you'll see on the northern part of the site, there's a large gravel outdoor storage area on the north side. That's historically always been there. A lot of outdoor storage in the rear. The applicant's really taken an opportunity here with occupying their business in this site, purchasing the property itself, to really clean it up, consolidate that outdoor storage into code compliant areas as opposed to the non-code compliant areas that exist today. So the additional fencing, the additional landscaping, you know, generally speaking, not our favorite use along a primary corridor like this, but I think in this case, the effort and the improvements the applicant has made really make a lot of sense here. They're taking a site that maybe has some visual clutter and conditions with it and really improving it. So it's nice to see someone willing to come in, take on a bit of a challenging site like this and really make it their own and improve it.
All right, Plan Commission, do you have any technical questions? Ms. Davy?
Just barely north of that south line of trees, where it looks like a racetrack. What is that?
Stormwater pond.
Thank you. So it's just terraced out?
Yeah, you're just looking at the grades as it's.
Any other technical questions? Ms. Prop?
Yeah. What we're doing here is improving the outdoor storage.
Largely, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Other technical questions? All right, I see none. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing and ask for a statement from the applicant. Is the applicant here tonight? Okay, approach the podium and state your name and address for our records, please.
Ethan Engel, located at 3420 Jackson Street. Speaking on behalf of the owner, I think Plan Commission summed it up pretty well. It's kind of a unique site as far as shape and mobility with some outdoor storage from previous owners. We are heavy civil, heavy civil construction contractors, trucking contractors, snow removal, with a little bit of landscaping. So I think most of our heavy equipment is planned to be stored off-site of this property. This is more for our smaller trucks, different attachments such as snow plows and things, kind of your more theft susceptible items. Most of our heavy equipment will not be stored here. There will be some, but not much. So I think the future plan would be to potentially expand, kind of filling in that south east corner if it ever possible. But again, appreciate the efforts on the planning staff to work with us to get this in compliance. So.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak on this agenda item? Any other members of the public wish to speak? I am seeing none, so I'm going to close the public hearing. And we don't need a closing statement from the applicant on this agenda item, so Commission, action is on your plate.
So zone change first.
Zone change first, 6A.
Move to adopt the finding and recommendation as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion on our motion? Okay, seeing none, we have a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Davy?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
Okay, 6B is the General Development Plan and Specific Implementation Plan for the outdoor storage area located at 3454 Jackson Street. SDI Properties LLC is the owner and applicant. Site inspections. Miss Davy, or I'm sorry, Miss Prop. Miss Davy, don't go that side of town. Anyway, I will accept the staff report has already been done, so we'll accept that as part of the record. Technical questions. Plan Commission, do you have any technical questions on 6B? Okay, I see none. I do allow the public to comment. Any members of the public wish to comment on 6B, the General Development Plan and Specific Implementation Plan? All right, I see no members of the public wish to speak, so I'm going to close the public comment period. I do not believe we need a closing statement from the applicant, so commission, action is on your plate.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this motion? 6B. Any discussion on this motion? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Miss Davy,
Aye.
Miss Prop,
Aye.
Mr. Nichols,
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali,
Aye.
Chairman Perry.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
All right, great. Item number 7, which is also a two-parter, as a general development plan. Item 7A, general development plan and specific implementation plan approval for commercial development on the property located at 420 South Keeler Street. It's 965 South Green Bay Road. LLC is the owner. Mach 4 Engineering and Surveying LLC is the applicant. Any site inspections? I'm seeing none. I'm going to accept the staff report as part of the record. And Plan Commission, do you want to hear both items and this? Yes, please present both. So I'm going to accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. So as stated, the applicant requests approval of a general development plan and special implementation plan for a commercial development at 420 South Kohler Street. The subject site is up here on the screen. It is a 2.16 acre parcel with commercial property with frontage on South Kohler. The property currently has a 39,000 square foot commercial building. It's a bank with a parking lot, and it's currently zoned suburban mixed use with a planned development overlay. So the applicant is proposing to divide the subject parcel into 2 commercial lots with the existing bank building being raised to make room for a new Old National Bank branch office. Improvements include the new bank building, associated parking, and drive-through banking facilities. The new lot, which we'll call the south lot here, is planned to be developed as a Chipotle Mexican grill, with improvements including the restaurant building, associated parking, pickup window, and stormwater management requirements. A CSM has been submitted and is currently being reviewed. As proposed, the 2 commercial sites will both have drive-through capabilities with shared access off South Kohler Street, as well as a shared access drive on the neighboring property to the north, which would require a cross-access agreement. The applicant is requesting a base standard modification for setback reduction from the rear lot line to 11 feet, where code requires 25 minimum feet. That's right here. And this is to accommodate a parking bump out stall. This request is just specific to that area. Staff is supportive of that request as it's a minimal area and will be offset with some increased landscaping. The applicant is requesting another base standard modification for an increase in impervious surface at the Old National Bank property. The code allows a maximum of 70% in the SMU zoning district, and that site will be at 71.1%. And the Chipotle site has a proposed total impervious value at 63.9%. So staff is supportive of that BSM request for the increased impervious surface on the Old National Bank site due to the overall development being under the 70% maximum. Also, the overall site is being decreased from the existing 80.1% of impervious surface, so. Plans were submitted for a single monopole pylon sign that will be used by both businesses. The location of the sign is being proposed on the Chipotle property. And so it's considered off-premise signage. So a base standard modification will be required in order to allow for the other sign to be on the other property. So staff is supportive of that because it eliminates the need for a second ground sign and it reduces the amount of visual clutter along the interstate corridor. The sign as proposed is a 35-foot tall sign with 227 square feet. This exceeds the 200 square foot maximum. So again, another BSM is required for that additional area. This is again supported as both properties have the ability to erect separate 200 square foot signs. So overall, we're having less square footage for the sites as combined. And so as an additional justification for the BSM, staff recommends an additional condition that no additional freestanding signs will be allowed on the proposed Lot 2. Wall signage plans have not been submitted, but those will be addressed at site plan review, and they'll be required to meet the base standards for the SMU zoning district. The applicant has provided a landscaping plan with landscaping points applied to building foundation, paved areas, street frontages, and yards. So first, we'll talk about the Old National Bank site. Very simply put, they are meeting all of their required points and are exceeding it. Here you can see the calculations on the bottom. Requirements would be about 446, and they're at 656. And was there, oh, this is the, here, 1 second here. So the building facade for Old National Bank, code requires the commercial building to be clad in 50% of Class 1 materials. And the proposed elevations for the Old National Bank facade shows a combination of brick, manufactured stone, metal panel, ephes, and glazing. And they're meeting the requirement of 15%. Let me just see what the next one is here. Okay, so we don't have. Real quick, I'll touch on the landscaping for the Chipotle site. Looks like we're missing a slide for that one, but again, the required was about 446, and they were at 656 for their total points provided. So to touch on the overall landscaping, the plans both meet the minimum requirements for building foundation. The paved area requirements are also being met. One note for the paved area is the applicant is missing 2 deciduous trees, but that can be addressed at site plan review. Again, street frontage, they're exceeding, and then for the required yards, they are exceeding it by about double the amount of points, and that's where they are offsetting the BSM requests. Now to talk about the facade for Chipotle. If I can find it.
Say the numbers on the screen.
Is it on the screen? Oh, there we go. Thanks. Again, commercial building requires 50% of Class 1 materials, and they are exceeding it on all sides of the building. And so with that, staff recommends approval of the GDP SIP with the findings listed in the staff report and the following conditions. Anything to add, Mark?
No, this is a challenging redevelopment site. Obviously, there is a largely underutilized bank currently on the site. Most of that building is vacant. So they're proposing a redevelopment of it, which is nice to see, especially when you have underutilized property on a primary corridor like this. A little bit of facelift, a little bit of improvement to the area. the challenges that go with redeveloping an existing bank and maintaining operations is what leads us to the next item.
One thing I forgot to mention is lighting. They are requesting a BSM for increased lighting levels along the north property line. Again, the north property line abuts, it's kind of a shared driveway with the more commercial properties to the north of it. So they are requesting a BSM for that increased lighting levels along the north lot line and the interior lot line that's going to separate the two properties. Staff does not have concern with either one of those requests, as it is required to provide sufficient lighting for the driveways. And they'll be required to meet all other code requirements at the property lines that are abutting the residentially zoned on the east.
All right, thank
Now-
you.
Yeah, should we jump into
Yes.
7B? All right. So the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to extend a temporary use permit for a temporary relocatable building during construction of the new bank. So here's a site plan showing both of the new proposed buildings, and then out to the west on Kohler Street, you can see that's where the temporary trailer is being proposed. So ultimately, a temporary use permit will need to be issued when it's applicable, and approval of this conditional use permit will allow that TUP to be extended for the duration of the project. The applicant is proposing to use a 24 by 56 foot temporary trailer as a temporary bank, again, while the existing bank is being raised and reconstruction occurs. They need this trailer to provide banking for their clients and also employment for their employees. There's a picture of the proposed trailer and a site plan closer. And so with that, staff is supportive of the TUP extension with the findings listed in the staff report and the conditions listed.
Yeah, so typically, temporary locatable buildings are only good for 6 months.
Yep.
Given the complexity of demoing a bank and still trying to maintain service and operations to, as he mentioned, clients and employees, it's going to take a little more than 6 months. They have to get the temporary bank up and running before they can demo the bank, to rebuild the bank. So pretty self-explanatory. Makes sense to allow them that additional extension to be able to complete the project.
And we're doing it now instead of later. You know, they haven't applied for the TUP yet, but they're going to have to at some point. And this
The
will just-
expectation is it won't be done in 6 months, so kind of erring on the side of caution in this case.
There is also one on the south side of town already set up that way.
That they're renovating.
Right. Okay, so item 7A. Are there any technical questions to staff on 7A, which is the general development plan and specific implementation plan? Yes, Mr. Nichols.
Just with the impervious surface, I understand that you're comfortable because one is above the requirement, one is below the requirement. Because the properties are being split, will there also be a restriction on Chipotle, I think in this case, to not increase the number of parking spots? Or does it cover the entire site?
So any changes, because it is a planned development, would have to come back. So if they did, for example, want to make an expansion in the future, we'd really be looking at the totality of this site and the bank site together, knowing that they were redeveloped under. Also, the stormwater management for both parcels is largely sitting on the south parcel, so they are going to have some operations, maintenance, stormwater agreements between the two properties that would limit, additions into that area.
Thank you.
Any other technical questions? I have one. The north entrance, are the curb cuts remaining the same?
Yeah, essentially they'll be maintained exactly almost as is today. If you remember, maybe a year and a half ago or so, the Old National Bank Southern actually got closed up. It used to be even larger than that. So they're going to maintain that existing northern shared access. The southern will be kind of close to what you see here today.
Okay, so when we hear from the applicant, I'd like to have them address the northern entrance, because it's pretty bad now to get in that northern entrance. It's either too small or something, and so I'd like to know where the majority of the traffic is envisioned when this project is up and going. Any other technical questions? Okay, general development plan. I do have a public comment period scheduled for this one, so I'm going to open the public comment period. Request a statement from the applicant. Is the applicant here today? Approach this podium and state your name and address for our records, please.
Hi, my name is Joel Airfirth. I'm with Mach 4 Engineering and Surveying in Green Bay. I guess, as staff alluded to, this has been a challenging project, and we'd like to thank staff. They've been really helpful guiding us through this process. Couple of notes. The sign is actually on the Old National Bank side.
Okay. Juts out there.
Yeah, it's in the same location, but it's switched slightly. And then just each site will have their own stormwater.
Oh, it does, okay.
Once that, if allowed, a temporary trailer, once that goes, they'll complete the stormwater for both sides. That way each one is independently responsible for their maintenance and upkeep of their own system for the most part. The driveway openings are on the north side is essentially what it is today, and on the south side, like staff said, it's slightly smaller. It's hard to say which way the traffic, it's probably going to depend on the time of day. Chipotle will probably drive most of the traffic at your lunch and dinner times, obviously. And then the bank will be, more sporadic during the business hours.
But to note, this is one-way traffic through here. Or is this two-way traffic here?
That would be two-way through there.
Okay.
And to that extent, or to that point, that's why in some part we're exceeding the impervious surface on the north side is we have to keep that, it's a shared access easement, so we have to keep that whole stretch on the north side asphalt because it serves not only our facility, but there's a couple buildings to the north that's our ingress egress point as well.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public wish to comment on this agenda item? All right, having seen none, I'm going to close the public comment period. Commission, is there action from you on 7A?
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Do we have a motion and a second? Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, 7A, General Development Plan. We will have a roll call vote.
Miss Davy? Miss Prop?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
All right, thank you. Item 7B is the public hearing. It's a conditional use permit request for a temporary use permit extension at 420 South Keeler Street. Old National Bank is the owner. Mach 4 Engineering and Surveying LLC is the applicant. Site inspections were none. So I've already accepted the staff report as part of the record. So Plan Commission, technical questions to the staff. Any technical questions? All right, I'm seeing none, so it's a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. The applicant can make a statement again if they so choose. All right. Any other members of the public wish to speak at this public hearing on item 7B? Any members of the public wish to speak on item 7B? Having seen none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And Commission, action is on your table.
Move to adopt the funding and recommendation as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on item 7B? I'm seeing none, so let's have a roll call vote, please.
Miss Davy?
Aye.
Miss Prop?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
All right, item number 8 is a general development plan amendment and specific implementation plan for our commercial development, the northwest corner of Oshkosh Avenue and North Westfield Street. Lakeshore Development of Oshkosh LLC is the owner and applicant. Have there been any site inspections? Ms. Prop? Okay. I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you. So the subject site has frontage on Oshkosh Ave and North Westfield Street. It's located within the Corporate Business Park District. It currently has a GDP in place that showed a 14,000 square foot commercial building in the subject site general area. And they're proposing a change to that, so we'll need a GDP amendment in addition to the SIP. Site is currently vacant as shown here. You have Casey's to the east and Popeyes to the west and the hotel to the north. The proposed plans are for a two-phase development on the subject site. Phase 1 will be a sports bar and restaurant with a patio on the east side of it. Phase 2 will be a commercial building addition. The site will be accessed from an existing shared access drive from North Westfield Street to the south to the site and coming south into the parking lot. The colored parking shown here is part of Phase 1, and then the lighter colored is part of Phase 2. The applicant is requesting a base standard modification to allow 48 parking stalls as part of Phase 1, where the maximum, based on the square footage of the building, is 25 spaces. The applicant has noted that the maximum capacity of the sports bar will be 155 people, which if they came in 2 per car, that'd be 77 spaces. However, the applicant feels that the proposed 48 will be sufficient for their needs. So staff is supportive of that. BSM as restaurants may need more parking than code currently allows. And we have seen that with recent restaurant approvals that have requested and approved BSMs for increased parking. So that is something that staff wants to look closer at in the future as far as potentially updating our ordinance to allow more parking for restaurants. Also for this site, the additional parking is also needed as there is no on-street parking on Oshkosh Ave or North Westfield Street to allow for the overflow parking. The applicant is also requesting a BSM for reduced rear yard setback to 5 feet for the parking area and for the dumpster enclosure. Staff is supportive of that as well, as it's abutting the shared access drive rather than another site. Also, they have added additional landscaping to compensate for that BSM request. So here's the landscaping plan. Again, they have additional landscaping along the north there, and they do have yard landscaping that exceeds the code requirements to offset it. They are requesting BSM for 2 parking row ends that will not have the required tree, as they have difficulty meeting it with the proximity to the building. So staff is supportive of allowing those islands without, or parking row ends without the required tree, as they have provided additional trees more along the street frontage side. They will have a ground sign that'll be shown right here. It meets the setbacks and it's oriented towards the intersection. It will be 9 foot 8 inches tall, which is under the maximum for the Corporate Business Park District. It'll have 3 20 square foot sign panels, and that is considered off-premise advertising. However, that was addressed as part of the GDP for the site. Had a BSM to allow off-premise advertising for that ground sign. Here are the building elevations. They are exceeding the Class 1 requirement on all facades, also meeting the 40% door and window area requirements. It does have the required composition of a base, middle, and top appearance. The west elevation has recessed brick to meet the articulation requirement. And there's no windows there, as there will be the future addition abutting that facade. So staff recommends approval of the GDP amendment and SIP with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
All right, thank you. Plan Commissioners, any technical questions to the staff? No technical questions to the staff? All right, it is I will allow a public comment period, so I'm going to open the public comment, request a statement from the applicant. Do you wish to speak, Mr. Hoopman?
Steve Hoopman, 5105 Iameda Road, Oshkosh. Just really, if there's any questions on it, we decided to do this in 2 phases right now rather than sitting with open, unleased up space at this point. We're working on a couple potential tenants, but right now we want to get started with the restaurant, sports bar, along with the hotel that'll be starting in a month or 2 as well. So,
Ms. Davy has a question.
What have you allowed between the hotel and the sports bar as far as people driving EVs, electric vehicles?
The hotels were working on that. I don't honestly know. I know they were talking about making accommodations in the Hilton when we get that going, but I don't have the details on that, I'm sorry.
I have a quick question as well. I noticed the sign's up, so this is going to move along quickly.
Hopefully we'll get started by mid-June and they should occupy by November.
Thank you. Any other questions before I turn over to the public, Mr. Nichol?
Are there any agreements between any of the adjoining properties for parking lot use, or?
There's cross-access, cross-parking agreements, and since we own everything, we're telling everybody they've got. We may have the staff actually park on the weekends in these places over in the north parking lot of the office building, just because it's across the street, and we want to keep as many spaces open for customers, but there's just only so many land, so much land, so.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
If I may.
Sure.
Not a question. Just want to thank Steve. Really, it's been many years now. We've been working through the entire redevelopment of this area, going through, how many workshops have we had over the years in this area. And, just it's been a pleasure working with you on the whole areas. We've kind of tried to bring the vision for this to forward. And it's nice to see that you're on kind of your last little piece here. You got
Exactly.
one more little building addition and
7 years.
yeah. So it's been great working through this entire redevelopment area, and I think hopefully at the end of the day, I think everyone's pretty proud with the full development that we've got there.
I think when in total, it'll be around 30 million worth of buildings that we've done over there, so. Thank you.
Mr. Kobali?
So what the west side of the building is going to be expanded into something else. So what's there for now?
So right now it'll just be green space.
Right.
You're hoping 2 tenant spaces there, correct?
Correct.
Kind of obviously flex space, not what you get for tenants, but yeah. So it'll just be
10,000
green
square feet
space.
left there.
All right, any other questions from the Plan Commission? All right, since this is a public comment period, are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? Any other members of the public that wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, having seen none, I'm going to close the public comment period. We don't need a closing statement from the applicant, so Commission, the action is upon you.
Move to adopt the funding recommendation as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Commission discussion on the motion. I'd also like to echo Mr. Lyons. It's been a long time that this has come through, and what I'm most proud about this last final phase is there are no drive-throughs. Thank you, Mr. Hoopman.
He finally heard you.
Any other discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, let's have a roll call vote.
Miss Davy?
Aye.
Miss Prop?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
Great. Item number 9 on our agenda, approve rules for public comment on the Plan Commission items. Mr. Lyons, this is on your,
Yeah, so a little bit different of agenda item because it's just a memo. This is obviously following up on the discussion we had at the previous Plan Commission, where Plan Commission expressed a desire to implement some rules related to public speaking and participation. I took the comments I heard, worked with the city attorney's office to draft language that would be compatible. It's, as you can see, it's very similar to councils with those modifications we talked about, 10 minutes for applicant instead of 5. And then kind of hearing some of the other comments, I think Ms. Davy had mentioned, we tried to then further incorporate the civility pledge into it as well, just to try to be mindful with the community of what we expect during public meetings in terms of a minimum kind of decorum that takes place. If approved, this will be placed right on the agenda, similar to council. So those rules will be formally adopted and shown right on the agenda for everyone to follow.
all right, Plan Commission, any discussion on this? It's something that I find necessary, and I think that the rest of the Planning Commission kind of has that appetite for this right now, so that we can have, on the rare situation where something is not in the public favor, that we can have a much more meaningful meeting occur and a lot more respect amongst all parties, so. All right, do we need a motion?
You do need to adopt
We
it.
need a motion to, the action is upon the Plan Commission.
And this would just be moved for adoption, no recommendations, findings, anything like that.
I move for adoption of the rules for public comment on Plan Commission items.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? This roll call too.
To be safe, sure.
Everything else has been. All right, we'll have a roll call vote.
Miss Davy,
Yes.
Miss Prop,
Yes.
Mr. Nichols,
Yes.
Mr. Kolabali,
Aye.
Chairman Perry.
Aye,
Motion carried 5-0.
5-0. All right, last item on the agenda is adjournment.
So moved.
All right, this can be a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. We do have one workshop.